Hello and welcome to this video on adding gold to metal clay. In this project we're going to learn how to embed casting grain into your clay pieces. In this video I'm going to show you how to make a really fun project. These, what I call silver and gold raindrops. So they're just kind of like blobs of silver and I've added some gold casting grain to them in metal clay. So it's also a way to show you how to use casting grain. So if you want to use it in different designs and different areas in your metal clay work, it's a really nice way for adding gold. So casting grain comes and it's like this, it's like little bits of grain, and I've got some yellow gold ones here, and it came in a little packet like this. This is approximately 1 gram's worth, so it comes in kind of all different sizes. You can't control exactly the size you're going to get, and that's yellow gold, 9 carat, and I've also got some red gold as well in 9 carat. So I use both of them for this project, but for today we're just going to use one of the medium-sized yellow gold ones. And I quite like that they come in different sizes because you can make little earrings and pendants and rings with them. So that's what we're going to be using, and it's all torch fired. So we're going to use just the one for today. And I've got my clay. So I've got a few grams of clay, depending on how big you want your raindrops to be. I'm just going to use a couple of grams of that. I've also got my sanding pad for sanding my piece when it gets to that stage. I've got a gold-filled chain, which I'm going to thread through. A pin vise with a drill on the end, which I'm just going to use for drilling the hole through my little piece. I like to have a soft paintbrush as well for a piece like this, because it's really important that I get a smooth edge for it to look nice. And when I'm sanding, you'll see in a bit, but I use the paintbrush to kind of dust off any spare bits of dust, because there's a fair amount of sanding on this piece. And finally, just a needle tool to help me push the grain into the clay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm just going to pop a little bit of Badger Balm onto my area first, just so that nothing gets stuck. It's important with this project to use fresh clay, because it's not very forgiving, so all of the lines are going to be shown. So I always try and use a fresh bit of clay if I can. And wrap up any clay that I'm not using for later. I'm just going to roll it into a ball. And then I kind of just shape it with my hands. These are very free form, these shapes. But I quickly want to put my gold into the piece. I'm just doing a bit more shaping first. But yeah, I have to be quite quick at this stage, because I don't want the clay to dry out before I put the gold in. And then I just kind of push it down a little bit, working on my shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, so I will do plenty of sanding, but then I just literally pop my gold on and push it in. So I'm just popping that in. I'm using my needle tool to just push that down. Now gold is set a bit like a stone, so it's important that it goes just below the surface of the clay, because as the clay dries, it's going to actually push it up a little bit. And when I fire it with the shrinkage, it's going to push the gold up a bit. So I really want it to sit quite low, just beneath the surface. Then I can play around with it a little bit more. Make sure I'm happy with the general shape and design. Then I'm just going to pop that on the hot plate and leave it to dry, and I'll bring it back for some sanding. So now our piece is nice and dry, we're ready to refine it. I'm going to start off by giving it a sand with the sanding papers. So I'm just going to go all the way around. And as I said with this piece, sometimes it does need quite a bit of a sand. If I've got any lines or any imperfections, I want to get them out at this stage. And this will make the difference between your piece looking really professional. With these pieces, they look lovely when they're shined up, if you've got a really nice smooth surface. Don't be afraid to take away a little bit of the shape if you need to get out any lines or imperfections. But this is another reason why we really want to use the fresh clay, because we're much more likely to have a nice finish on it. So I'm just going to go all the way around, do my sanding. I don't want to sand too much near the grain because I want to keep it still nice and firmly nested in there. I have made one or two of these where the gold casting grain has popped out. What that means is that it's just not been pushed in quite far enough. There are ways you can fix it by drilling down a little bit into your clay and adding a bit of paste behind the stone. But most of the time I just kind of start again and reuse that clay, reconstitute it, because it doesn't take very long to make the actual piece. Great, so when I'm happy, I'm going to do some drilling. So for this piece I want to drill down the side. I'm going to use my hand drill and choose a bit that's kind of chunky enough to get the drill piece through. Starting the drilling is always the hardest for this. And just keep checking it as I go along. The drilling is a little bit tricky on this one, so take your time. And you'll see plenty of dust coming up because I'm doing quite a big hole, because I want to fit an actual chain through here, so I'm going for quite chunky. And you can feel it coming through the other end. So just go all the way through. Make sure I've got a nice clean hole. And I can go back through as well from this side. Because I want to fit a chain through there, I want to make sure that there's plenty of space. Wonderful, and then I'll just use my sanding pad to sand up the sides. And then that piece is going to be ready for firing. So we're going to pop it on the block and fire it. So now I'm ready to torch fire my piece. I'm just going to turn my gas and my torch on, point it at the piece and start firing. I'm going to fire this piece for 3 minutes to make sure that it's really well done. Some people say 2 or 2.5, I like to go for 3, especially because it's quite a chunky piece. If you've never torch fired metal clay before, do check out the beginner's tutorials for how to do that. But essentially I'm pointing my torch at the piece and moving it round, and it will change colour, it will go dark like it has, and then it will go white and the gold will go dark. So don't worry about any of that, that's all part of the process. And once I reach this kind of peachy glow colour, I'll start my timer. So it's just torch firing the same way you would any of your metal clay. Just obviously being careful not to melt the gold and not to melt the silver, so just keeping that nice peachy glow. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for 3 minutes and I'll see you on the other side. So that's my 3 minutes up. I'm just going to turn off my torch and put it somewhere safe. Remember that my piece is very, very hot. And I just need to cool it down before I start polishing. I'm just going to put it onto a steel block to help with the cooling process. Just my tweezers. Don't worry if your gold is black, that is normal at this stage. We'll polish it up and it will look nice and shiny again. So I'm just going to give that a couple of minutes to cool, and then I'm just going to brush it with a brass brush, and essentially the piece is finished. You just go through your polishing papers or however you like to polish. With these samples that I've done before, I put them in the barrel polish. So if you've got barrel polish, it's a really nice piece to be able to put in there. And then you're going to thread it through your chain. So you need a fine chain to be able to thread it through the hole. And sometimes it does take a little bit of time to get the chain through. A little trick that I use if I can't get the chain through easily is just by using a bit of wire and pushing the chain through with the wire. So just give yourself a little bit of time to do that. This is nearly cool enough to touch. Just give it a couple more seconds. There we go. Great, so yeah, once it's done, I can touch it and I can start brushing. It's always a very rewarding part, brushing it up and brushing up the gold as well, so you can start to see your piece come to life. And I really like these projects. I find them really satisfying, these little drops, but the same technique can be applied for pretty much any design that you want for adding your casting grain. So essentially it's not soldered in, it's not pasted in, it's not syringed in, but it is encased in the metal. So you want to push it down into your metal. So you can either do that through creating a thick piece with multiple layers, or something round or 3D like a charm. But have a go and experiment with using casting grain. It's a nice, simple, fun way to add a bit of gold to your work. And of course, all these ways that we've been working with adding gold, they just elevate your designs. They mean you can sell your pieces normally for more, and also just make it really exciting. And if you're anything like me, I love gold, and combining the metals of silver and gold just makes pieces really gorgeous. So as I said, all you do now is finish polishing it, pop a chain through the middle, and you are ready to go. So thank you so much for joining me for this course. I hope you've enjoyed adding gold to your metal clay in these fun different ways. Do come and share in the Facebook group any projects that you've made and ask any questions. If you need any supports, we are always here. And I look forward to seeing you on another course very soon.